5,500 years ago, the ancient Greeks shared stories with each other about heroes, villains, gods, and goddesses. As a collection, these stories are known as Greek mythology. They were used by the ancient Greeks to explain how the world works. You may not think you know anything about Greek mythology, however, it is very likely you have encountered it at some point. Movies such as Disney's Hercules, DC's Wonder Woman, and the Percy Jackson series all contain some form of Greek mythology. However, these books and movies don't always go into detail about these myths, or the mythology is inaccurate, because their goal is to entertain their audience, not to educate them. In this documentary, we will focus on the history of the Greek gods and the rise and fall of the different generations. The first generation of Greek gods were the primordial gods, beings that didn't control the world, they were the world. The ancient Greeks believed that every deity began from a void in space, starting with Chaos, who was the gap between heaven and earth. After Chaos emerged came Gaia, quickly followed by Tartarus and Eros. Gaia was known as the mother of all creation and had many children without male. The most significant were Tartarus, Pontus, and Uranus. As well as creating Uranus, Gaia had children with him, the most significant of which were the Titans. There were 12 Titans, many of which had children with each other. The most important Titans were Cronus and his sister wife Rhea. Rhea and Cronus had children, who were the cause of the Titans' fall from power. Uranus and Gaia also had children called the Cyclops and Hecatoncheires, who Uranus disliked, so he cast them into Tartarus. This deeply upset and hurt Gaia, which led to her convincing her sons to rebel against their father. Cronus instructed his brothers to hold the sky in the four corners of the earth, while Cronus castrated Uranus with a sickle. The detached testicles fell into the sea, and where they landed, the sea frothed until Aphrodite arose. However, despite also coming from Uranus, Aphrodite is considered an Olympian, not a Titan. Following Uranus' defeat, Gaia told a prophecy about the fall of the Titans, caused by a repeated cycle of the son killing the father. After the death of Uranus, the Titans peacefully reigned over the earth, replacing the primordial gods. However, Cronus, like his father, became cruel and jealous, and despite originally freeing the Cyclops and Hecatoncheires, Cronus re-banished them into Tartarus. This angered Gaia, and explains why she later on helps Rhea save Zeus. The ancient Greeks regarded the Olympians as their most important gods. The beginning of the Olympian story continues with Cronus and Rhea, the parents of Demeter, Hades, Hestia, Hera, Poseidon, and Zeus. Their father was being tormented over the thoughts of the prophecy, so he decided to deal with it before it came true. He did this by eating his infant children after Rhea gave birth to them. Cronus believed he could break the son killing father's cycle and continue ruling over the earth. Rhea wasn't happy about Cronus eating her children, so when she gave birth to her youngest son Zeus, Rhea disguised a rock in swaddling clothes and tricked Cronus into eating that instead of Zeus. Gaia, who was still bitter over her son's betrayal, raised Zeus in a hidden cave until he grew up and could dethrone his father, becoming king of the gods. When he reached maturity, Zeus disguised himself as Cronus' cupbearer, where Zeus gave his father a mixture of wine and mustard. When Cronus drank this mixture, he threw up all of Zeus' siblings. Afterwards, Zeus gathered them and convinced them to wage war on Cronus and the other Titans. This started the Battle of the Titans, most commonly known as the Titanomachy. Zeus released the Hecatoncheires and Cyclopses from Tartarus and asked for their help fighting against their brother, Cronus. The male Titans were defeated and thrown into Tartarus, guarded by the Hecatoncheires. After the Titanomachy, Zeus, Hades, and Poseidon drew lots to decide who would rule over each kingdom. The other Olympians split the Titan roles amongst themselves. Hades was one of the most feared and powerful deities in Greek mythology because of his role as king of the underworld. He rarely interfered with his family feuds and mostly kept to himself. However, despite this, Hades wasn't an Olympian. This was due to him spending most of his time in a dark palace in the underworld and not Mount Olympus where the other Olympians lived. Poseidon was god of the sea and seafarers, while also having power over horses and earthquakes, and worshipped across the entirety of the Greek world, especially in cities such as Athens, who sat by the sea. He was married to Amphitrite, who was a minor Titan goddess of the sea. Demeter was the goddess of fertility and agriculture, taking over her mother's territory. She was also a goddess of women, family, law, and mysteries. As one of the least controversial of all the Greek deities, she didn't have many children. One of the most famous of her children was Persephone, who would eventually marry Hades and become queen of the underworld. Hestia was the goddess of the home and hearth, which means the area of the fireplace. She was often represented with a veil and a robe to symbolize her virginity. Hera was Zeus's third wife and queen of the gods. She was the goddess of women, family, and marriage. She was also known in Greek mythology as a jealous goddess who was always tormenting her husband's lovers and their children. She was the mother of Ares, the god of war, and Hephaestus, the god of craftsmanship. Zeus, king of the gods, is at the top of the Olympian family tree. He was the god of the sky and the weather, but he was also connected with the household, the city, and law and order. He was known for his many lovers as well as his many children. The ancient Greeks believed in the power of 12. There were 12 primordial gods and 12 Titan gods, which led to 7 of Zeus's children also becoming Olympians. Athena was born to Zeus and his first wife Metis. Athena was the goddess of wisdom and war, and often guided many ancient Greek heroes through their adventures. In mythology, Athena was portrayed as a very intelligent goddess, who could also be very destructive towards her enemies. Artemis and her twin Apollo were the children of Zeus and his lover Leto. Artemis was often shown in books with a bow and arrow, and a hunter's tunic, surrounded by animals. This was a reflection of her role in mythology as the goddess of the hunt, nature, and wild animals. Her brother Apollo was the god of prophecies, music, as well as being the personification of masculine beauty. Apollo was also associated with plague and art. Ares was the son of Zeus and Hera. He was the god of war. However, unlike Athena, who was more the goddess of strategy, Ares was the god of the brutal and unrestrained aspects of war. Hephaestus was the second child of Hera and Zeus. However, in some myths, Hephaestus was born from Hera without a male. After Hephaestus was born, his mother threw him off Mount Olympus into the mortal realm because he was too ugly for her to lay her eyes on. He was the god of the fire and craftsmanship, and created weapons for gods and mortals alike. Despite being considered an outsider by some of his family, he did marry Aphrodite. The last of Zeus's Olympian children is Hermes. Hermes was a messenger god, however he also had connections with travellers, thieves, shepherds, and guided the souls of the dead to the underworld. He delivered news, advice, and commands from different gods and tried to keep the other gods from arguing with one another. The final of the 12 Olympians is Aphrodite, the goddess of love and desire. Through her personality, she showed all the possibilities that love and passion had to offer. This includes both the destructive and gentle traits of love. She was often married to Hephaestus, but was known to take many lovers. All these gods at some point were vital to the ancient Greeks. By sacrificing things to the gods, the ancient Greeks believed their gods would favour them and help them one day in their time of need. That's the end of my documentary. By now I hope you know a little bit more about Greek mythology and can use this information to spot references from it all around you.